standards and designs from other metropolitan areas and plop them into there, saving a whole lot of time, saving a whole lot of money. But here in the United States, we customize things. We customize stations, we customize trains, we customize the interiors of trains.
But a lot of the problems stem from the construction process itself. There are always unforeseen issues below ground.
When you open up a street in New York City, all of the infrastructure is below ground. It's, all the sewers and electrical venting system for different tunnels, it's all below ground. So all of that needs to be moved in order for a project to even begin.
Controlled explosions underground, also known as blasting, are needed to dig out tunnels. Phase 1's 3 stations used 2 different escalator contractors, and each had a different number of exits, elevators, and other features. The ratio of station costs to tunneling costs on the subway was far higher than on other projects in Paris and Milan. A reason why projects are so overbuilt? Politics. When big projects do come around, the political bodies with seats on transit agency boards often want to tack on streetscape improvements, parks, or other neighborhood beautification. These agencies often have to know how to bargain with local governments who have jurisdiction over the areas where they want to build. And the transit agencies often don't have much leverage in negotiations.
So what that means is that cities will say, oh, well, if you want a permit to, do construction in our city, you need to give us all these things. You need to repave our streets. You need to use these types of pipes. You need to, build us a park, so on and so forth. And, in New York, we had that problem with 2nd Avenue subway phase 1. And the MTA can't forcefully push back on the mayor and say, pound dirt. We need the permit from you in order to legally do this. So then we're going to have to pay the bribe, essentially.
Politics also slows down planning processes. Seattle's public transit projects, like the $12 billion to $15 billion West Seattle and Ballard Link extensions, allow for a lot of meddling by local officials over things like where tracks and stations are located. The transit board, feeling heat from constituents, often delays the planning process to allow for alternatives to be explored. But the longer the project is delayed, the higher the cost, simply because of inflation. Labor costs are also higher, but not necessarily because of higher pay. Sweden is a high-wage country, yet its overall labor costs are lower. Projects in the Northeast U.S. employ many more workers, many with jobs that don't always seem essential. There are more blue-collar workers and more white-collar ones, 40 to 60% more in the case of a project in Boston.
Most sectors in the economy has increasing productivity over time. Construction is flat or actually slightly falling, and we go back all the way to 1960 and up until today. That's actually 60 plus years we have data for, and we can see that efficiency is not increasing in the construction sector. That's a real problem, and anything where you cannot or do not increase the efficiency is going to be expensive.
The other big piece of it is that in America and in New York, there's a big overtime culture, right? So collecting overtime on your pay, whereas in other parts of the world, there are caps on how much overtime you can work. And there's also an effort to sort of normalize that stuff. So it's sort of okay, you can't just collect, 80 hours of overtime in a week or whatever it is. It's you can only work a total of 45 hours, let's say, I think is the cap in France.
The relationships between agencies and contractors are often adversarial and secretive, and agencies often have trouble managing contractors. A lack of competition among contractors and privatized risk all inflate bid prices. A lot of the rest of the cost comes down to soft costs, which include things like design, insurance, construction management, planning, and all other expenses. In a lot of places, these costs can range from 5